We now turn to Ambassador Wendy Sherman. She was the lead U.S. negotiator for the nuclear agreement with Iran during the Obama administration, and she's now a senior fellow at the Belfer Center at Harvard. You heard me ask Brian Hook whether the U.S. intention is to provoke Iran, is to wage war, which is what we heard from the Iranian ambassador. Do you believe the U.S. intention is to provoke Iran?
Well, I hope that the U.S. intention is not to provoke Iran to leave the deal or to provoke Iran into a regional conflict. Indeed, I think that President Rouhani very carefully threaded the needle today, not leaving the deal, but beginning to take steps to say, please, let's not escalate this situation. I wish the Trump administration were as measured in its approach. And I would say to Brian Hook and to the Trump administration, what have they gotten as a result of withdrawing from this deal a year ago? There is more malign behavior in the Middle East, not less. Americans are still in prison and missing in Iran. The Iranian people do not have more freedom, and the administration has set Iran back on a path to perhaps working to obtain nuclear weapons, exactly what we stopped from happening. So
you just said the U.S. has led Iran onto that path, but as I asked the ambassador, why should Iran enrich more than 3.67? What's wrong with where they are right now, and why isn't that criticism valid?
Iran is very happy to stay at 3.67% in its enrichment of uranium if, indeed, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the Iran deal, stays in place. And those limitations are for quite some time. And it is all about...
Although, as you know, your critics say not
Yes,
long enough.
I know they say it's not forever. It is least solid for 15 years that you cannot go above a certain stockpile limit. You can't go above 3.67%. But even after that, there are limitations on what Iran can do. And there is the most extensive monitoring and inspection of Iran of any country in the world.
Iran said, as you heard the ambassador, that we will enrich beyond 3.67 if we don't get the incentives that the JCPOA, that the Iran deal intended for Iran to get. The Europeans would be the ones to help deliver that. Can they deliver the incentives economically to keep Iran within this deal?
I think it's very tough because, as I think you know quite well, the U.S. secondary economic sanctions, which say that if you deal with the Central Bank of Iran, you can't deal with an American bank, are incredibly powerful because, quite frankly, virtually every company in the world would choose an American bank over the Central Bank of Iran. And when you marry that with the oil sanctions, that with the administration trying to go to zero exports allowed around the world, they're very powerful sanctions. The U.S. has to be careful in what it does, though. If we use these sanctions too much, people will begin to say that we should no longer have the dollar as the reserve currency of the world. The other thing I'd point out, Nick, is, in my view, there are tactics here, but no strategy, and certainly no consistent strategy. If we take a look at North Korea, if we take a look at Venezuela, if we take a look at how we're dealing with the Chinese and the Uyghurs, we see a very different set of standards.
The U.S. earlier this week deployed a carrier group to the Middle East, as well as a bomber squadron, in response to intelligence, according to the officials that I spoke to, in which Iran was planning to target U.S. troops and also target U.S. allies, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. Doesn't that show that the Iran deal didn't improve Iranian behavior?
We never said that it would improve Iranian behavior in the region. What we did say is that we needed to get the nuclear weapon off the table so it would not deter our actions and our partners and our allies' actions in the region. And we could then use all of the sanctions that we still had on Iran to press them to the table to deal with their malign behavior, the state sponsorship of terrorism, their human rights abuses, and their keeping Americans in prison and not bringing back missing Americans to our home.
Very quickly, I only have a few seconds left. Iran's strategy seems to be waiting out the Trump administration. If a Democrat is elected in 2020, should he or she rejoin the deal and/or try and expand it?
I think every Democratic candidate that I've heard have said that they would immediately rejoin the deal. But like in any arms control negotiation, you usually have a follow-on agreement.
Wendy Sherman, lead U.S. negotiator for the Iran deal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And for a view from the streets of Iran, we have more online where I talk to special correspondent Reza Sayah in Tehran. That's at pbs.org/newshour.